The recent ceasefire deal in Gaza, marked by the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas and Palestinian prisoners held by Israel, brought scenes of immense relief and hope. Some even hailed it as a triumph of a particular approach to peacemaking, reminiscent of Donald Trump's vision for the region. Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, emphasized the success of focusing on immediate gains, suggesting that delaying the nitty-gritty details was key. Similarly, the Qatari Prime Minister highlighted that pursuing a comprehensive, all-encompassing agreement up front might have prevented any progress at all. But here's where it gets controversial. Can a lasting peace truly be built on deferred details? This approach, while seemingly pragmatic in the short term, mirrors a pattern of past peace attempts that ultimately faltered. The Oslo Accords, for instance, suffered from a similar throw it at the wall and see what sticks mentality, leaving crucial issues unresolved. This allowed for actions, like the expansion of Israeli settlements, to undermine the intended creation of an independent Palestinian state. So, what makes this time different? Several critical questions remain unanswered, and their resolution will determine whether this agreement transcends the failures of its predecessors. 1. Will Israel withdraw its troops completely from Gaza? Currently, Israeli forces have retreated from major Gazan cities, establishing a presence along a yellow line that encompasses approximately 53% of the territory. The plan outlines further withdrawals in two phases. First, upon the deployment of an international stabilization force, and second, to a permanent security buffer zone. However, recent statements from Benjamin Netanyahu paint a different picture. He emphasized the IDF's continued deep presence within Gaza, controlling key strategic points and encircling Hamas. And this is the part most people miss. Netanyahu's rhetoric raises concerns that a full withdrawal might not be as imminent as the agreement suggests. Israel's track record in similar situations, such as its ongoing occupation of Syrian territory and recent strikes in southern Lebanon, despite ceasefire agreements, casts doubt on its willingness to fully relinquish control. Could this reluctance to withdraw be a deal-breaker in the long run? Will Hamas disarm? A central pillar of the White House plan is the disarmament of Hamas. However, a senior Hamas official swiftly dismissed this notion, declaring it out of the question and not up for negotiation. Even amidst the hostage release, armed Hamas fighters were visibly present in Gaza, seemingly reasserting their authority. This isn't entirely surprising, given that Hamas's power stems largely from its control over the use of force. Historically, the group has consistently sought to expand its military capabilities whenever it possesses arms. Furthermore, the plan lacks concrete details on how disarmament would be implemented. A potential model, cantonment, involves moving fighters to designated sites to surrender their weapons. But here's where it gets tricky. Would Hamas leaders and fighters, deeply aware of how they are perceived by international actors, trust their weapons to Egyptian control or an international force? Knowing that relinquishing their arms likely means never seeing them again, their cooperation seems highly improbable. 3. How will the International Stabilization Force operate effectively? The White House plan envisions a temporary International Stabilization Force, ISF, composed of Arab and international partners, to deploy in Gaza and provide long-term internal security, enabling Israel to withdraw without fear of Hamas rebuilding. However, many crucial details remain vague. Will the ISF have a UN mandate? What conditions will contributing nations demand? What will be the precise scope of its authority? A Western diplomat suggested that the force's mere presence would deter conflict, even if it did absolutely nothing. But is this a realistic expectation? Skepticism is warranted. A recent incident involving an Israeli drone strike near UN peacekeepers in Lebanon highlights the potential for limitations and unintended consequences. The UNIFIL force in southern Lebanon, mandated to patrol and report ceasefire violations, has often been described as toothless, with limited ability to enforce its mandate. Could a similar ISF in Gaza truly prevent either side from escalating tensions? 4. Can reconstruction work truly get underway and benefit the people of Gaza? The White House plan promises to rebuild and energize Gaza, drawing on various investment proposals. However, the lack of specific details casts doubt on the possibility of a rapid and effective Marshall Plan for Gaza. While Palestinians will undoubtedly strive to rebuild, the scale of the damage is immense. Moreover, Israel's potential demands for guarantee, even with monitored systems for purchasing building materials, black markets flourished, undermining the intended oversight. Could similar challenges hinder reconstruction efforts this time, leaving ordinary Gazans unable to obtain essential materials? 5. Will there be a meaningful transition to Palestinian-led governance? The White House plan was developed without significant input from Palestinian civil society in Gaza. The transitional government may involve figures like former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, but lacks credible Palestinian leadership. Netanyahu's apparent reluctance to accept the Palestinian Authority's eventual role, coupled with the PA's deep unpopularity in Gaza, further complicates matters. There's a distinct lack of Palestinian ownership in this process, and it doesn't present a clear vision for a future Palestinian state. Some suggest that certain architects of the plan recognize the need for former Hamas members to play a role in Gaza's future. However, Israel's apparent determination to prevent this raises concerns about a potential de-Baathification scenario, similar to the disastrous policies implemented in Iraq after the 2003 invasion. Such a policy would fail to acknowledge that many essential professionals in Gaza, such as doctors, engineers, and educators, may have had affiliations with Hamas. In Iraq, widespread exclusion led to chaos and sectarian violence. Gaza, of course, has its own unique context. However, the absence of a meaningful reconciliation process that allows all Palestinians to participate in civil life raises serious questions about whether this deal truly benefits Palestinian society. What are your thoughts on the inclusivity of this plan? And could it lead to unintended consequences down the line?